Hi, today we're going to learn how to use VPN to stay secure and private online. Wow, this is a tough job. Just kidding. When you use NordVPN, all it takes is just a single click. See for yourself. Click, and you're browsing securely on public Wi-Fi. Click, your ISP can't see what you do online. Click, and you're in a different country. Well, virtually. Any device you have there, NordVPN has you covered. Everything else is just details. But if you care to know more, NordVPN has more than 5,000 servers all over the world. It protects your sensitive data with advanced encryption, shields you from malware and phishing sites, and keeps no logs of your online activity.
Click link in the description and get 68% discount for your first order. Framing design fabric. Select your materials. You will first need to choose the fabric you wished to hang and display. Traditional Marenco fabric is often hung as an accent for your home, however. You can hang almost any fabric design you wish to. You will also need to purchase 4 stretcher bars to make a frame. These vary widely in terms of thickness, color, etc. If you would rather make your own frame, check out this link, How to Make a Picture Frame. Go to your local arts and crafts store to find bars which accent your fabric of choice and which are large or small enough for your particular project. If you want a large picture, get large bars. If you want a small picture, buy smaller ones. Stretcher bars usually come pre-packaged so that you will always get 2 smaller bars and 2 larger bars, 2 for the sides of your picture and 2 for the length of your picture. You will also need to pick up the following items: heavy-duty staple gun, 5/16-inch heavy-duty staples, an iron, a hammer, 2 eye hooks, and some picture frame wire. Assemble your frame. Slide the notched ends of the stretcher bars into one another, making each corner a 90-degree angle. Make sure that you place a small bar next to a large one, next to a small one, next to a large one, how a normal picture frame looks. Give each corner a gentle tap with a hammer to make sure each notch is securely in place. You can also use glue if you choose to help secure the notches. Before you slide them into one another, apply a small amount of wood glue to the receiving end of the notch. Then slide in the bar, hold for a few minutes at a 90-degree angle, and lift away. Iron your fabric. Take your piece of fabric and lay it on a flat surface, such as an ironing board. Do so that the design is facing downwards. Set your iron to the low setting and gently press against the back of your fabric. Work it to the left and the right in order to smooth out the entire piece. Let your fabric rest and cool. Place your already made frame on top of the fabric on the back of the fabric. Use a ruler to measure 2 inches of fabric on each side of the frame. Use a pair of scissors or a rotary blade to cut the fabric at this 2-inch mark all the way around the frame. If you decide to use a rotary blade, make sure that you use a cutting board so that you don't cut through your table. Staple your fabric. Start on whichever side you like. Bring up the fabric around the middle of the side and staple it through to the wood. Make sure that the fabric is pulled tight. Work towards each of the corners, placing staples about 1 inch apart each. Pull the fabric tight with each staple. Repeat the previous instruction for each of the sides. If you think that the fabric is too loose underneath one of the staples, use a staple remover and re-staple your fabric. Important: leave the fabric on the corners loose. Do not staple the corner fabric down. Cut off the corner fabric. It is best to use a pair of scissors for this, rather than a rotary blade. However, do not cut off all of the fabric, just a good inch or so of the excess. Do this for each corner. After you have the fabric cut, lay one side of the fabric down against the frame and lay the other piece on top of the other. Staple 2 staples into these 2 pieces, each staple about 1/4 inch separate from one another. Go around and give a gentle tap with a hammer to any staples you don't think have fully sunk in. Add wire to your frame. Screw in 2 eye hooks to the top bar you wish to hang the fabric from. Put each eye hook about 1 inch inward on each side of the bar. Cut a piece of wire and feed each end through both of the eye hooks. Curl the wire on each end so that the wire is tight. Remember, you do not want the wire to show when you hang it up. If your piece is too long, either curl more on both ends or cut a new piece of wire. You only want about 1/2 inch of lag. Once you have attached the wire, hang it up on your wall, making a tapestry wall hanging. Gather your materials. The most important item to buy is either canvas or burlap measuring to 1/2 feet by 4 1/2 feet. This can be found at most craft stores. You can choose any color of canvas or burlap you like, but remember that you will be painting designs on top of the material. Therefore, you should go for lighter colors, such as white or off-white. You will also need to pick up the following items: painter's tape, fabric paint, a paper plate, a small paintbrush, a template with your design of choice, sandpaper, an iron, fabric glue, two 7/8 inch dowels, two eye hooks, and twine to hang your tapestry. Lay your canvas out vertically. Measure with a ruler 3 inches from the bottom of the canvas and draw a straight horizontal line. Take a piece of masking tape that is 2 1/2 feet long and place it along this line. Top edge of masking tape goes on the line. Measure 1 inch above the masking tape and draw another straight horizontal line. Place a 2 1/2 foot long piece of masking tape along this line. Bottom edge of masking tape goes along line. Paint your canvas. Place a small amount of fabric paint on a paper plate. Dip the paintbrush into the paint and paint between the two pieces of tape. While you can slightly paint over the tape, make sure not to get loose paint on the rest of the canvas. It is best to dab rather than to brush in long strokes. Wipe your paintbrush off with a paper towel and then run it under some hot water. This will get the excess paint off. Wait for the paint to dry before you safely remove the tape strips. You can add more paint stripes above the one you made. Simply repeat the previous instructions, adjusting the height of each of your stripes. Instead of a 1-inch stripe, you may want to paint a 1/2 inch stripe above the one you already painted. Leave some space in between each stripe so that you can clearly see each one. Make sure not to make too many stripes, as you need some space to paint on your design. Print out your template. You will want to stick to something basic that can be identified simply by the outline of the object or thing. Many simple designs can be found online, such as animals, flowers, architecture, etc. Whatever picture you choose, print it out and cut it out using scissors. You can adjust the picture size when you print it out to fit your canvas. You will want it no larger than 2 1/2 feet in vertical length and 2 feet in horizontal width. When you have cut out your design, center it on the canvas. Use a ruler to make sure that it is equidistant on the horizontal sides and vertical sides respectively. Trace around the design with a light pencil mark and remove the design. Paint inside of your design. Spread a small amount of fabric paint onto a clean paper plate. Dip into the paint with your small paintbrush and use dabbing motions on the fabric. You can choose to use multiple colors for your design or just one. You can also add small amounts of black or white paint to create some shading. Try to keep the paint color true to the original design. For instance, if you do a piece of architecture, use brown paint if it's wooden or gray paint if it is stone. Once you are done painting the design, set your canvas aside to give it time to dry. Meanwhile, you can rub off the excess paint on your paintbrush with paper towel, and then run the paintbrush under some hot water. Add texture and life to your painting. Note, this is a strictly optional step. When your canvas is nearly dried, you can scrunch up with fabric in order to give your painting a more worn and antiquated look. Fold it like an accordion and immediately relieve the stress. You can also run sandpaper over the design gently. This will peel off some of the paint and create a weathered look. If you choose to do this step, you will need to iron the surrounding canvas. Iron the blank canvas around the design using the low setting on your iron. Make sure to do this on an ironing board or another safe surface. Ironing the excess fabric will create a nice contrast between the antiquated design and the smooth, soft canvas. Once you are done ironing, let your canvas rest in a safe place so that it stays wrinkle-free. Create loops at the top and bottom of your canvas. These loops will be used to hold your dowel rods. Once your design is completely dry, flip your canvas over. Take the top part of the canvas and curl it backwards so that you have 1 inch of fabric on the back. You can crease it if you like in order to keep it from constantly curling back. Place a small amount of fabric glue on the edge of the pulled back fabric. Make sure to leave some space underneath for your dowel rod to slide through. Press the edge down onto the back side of the canvas and apply pressure until it is dry. Do the same at the bottom of your canvas. Pull backwards 1 inch of fabric and fold it by making a crease. Place some fabric glue on the edge of the folded fabric, leaving space underneath, and apply pressure until it is dry. If you do not have the patience for typical fabric glue, you can use hot glue for a faster drying period. However, make sure that you are using safe practices, not getting any of the hot glue on your hands. Slide your dowel rods through the loops. 1 dowel rod for each of the 2 loops you just created. Screw an eye hook onto each end of the top dowel. Eye hooks are basically screws with hoops on the end. You should be able to screw them in by hand, although you may need to pre-drill a tiny hole in order to help expedite the process. Thread 1 strand of twine through both of the eye hooks. Leave some lagging twine in between so that you can hang your canvas. Tie a knot on each end of the twine near the eye hooks. Once you are done, hang the tapestry design on your wall. Create a yarn wall hanging. Gather your materials. You will need to purchase either a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch dowel rod. The length of the rod depends on how much yarn you plan to use for one hanging and how many colors you wish to add to the design. You will need multiple casts of yarn in various colors. Pick up some glue and some heavy-duty scissors as well. Prepare your yarn. You will need yarn in multiple lengths. Take your first color of yarn and begin to wrap it around your elbow and in between your pointer finger and thumb. Wrap it around, creating loops. This will create strings about 24 inches long. 12 inches will appear, hanging down from the dowel rod. After you are done wrapping, carefully take the yarn off of your elbow and finger crooks, laying it to the side. This will be your shortest length of yarn. You need to create at least 2 more sections, each of a different color. The second section should be about 36 inches long. 18 inches will appear, and 48 inches long. 24 inches will appear. You can find interesting ways to wrap your yarn, like from your arm to your foot, or between 2 doorknobs. You can also simply cut 36 or 48-inch pieces against a long ruler. Set each of your wrapped yarn loops to the side, making sure to keep them in their loop form. Arrange your yarn in terms of color. Take your shortest yarn strands, 24 inches, and cut them at one end of the loop with scissors. Begin to drape them over the dowel rod, making sure that the strings are equidistant on both sides of the rod, 12 inches on each side. Scrunch them all together on one end of the rod. Take your next longest yarn strands, 36 inches, and do the same thing. Cut them at one end and drape them over the rod, equidistant on both sides. Scrunch them together and slide them next to the 24-inch strands. Do the same with the 48-inch strands. Scrunch them together and slide them together against the 36-inch strands. If you decided to add even more lengths, add them now. Glue your strands on. Once you have arranged the strands properly, take out your glue. Work in colored sections, starting with the shortest strands. Lift the 24-inch section up slightly and add a strip of glue to the dowel rod. Press the strands down, trying your best to keep the strings equidistant on both sides. Hold them down until the glue is fairly dried. Do the same thing for the 36 and 48-inch strands. Make sure that you apply glue to the rod, keep them bunched up, and pressed against the previous lengths. Leave your rod somewhere safe to dry. You do not want to begin cutting the yarn until the glue is fully dried. Trim and be creative. First, you will need to hang your design where you want it to hang permanently. This might mean hanging it on a few nails or tacks in your wall, evenly placed on both sides. Or you can buy eye hooks and screw one onto each end of the dowel rod. Slide a piece of yarn through both eye hooks and tie knots on each end. Finally, hang the string on a hook or tack. Get out a pair of heavy-duty scissors. Begin cutting the bottom of your strands of yarn at angles. There are 3 options you can choose. Cut every strand at one continuous angle, cut each of the separate colors at different angles, or just cut whichever way you want to. The key is to get creative. It doesn't have to be perfect or smoothly cut. Because this project is relatively quick, you can always make another one in a short period of time if you make a mistake. However, with this project, mistakes are really creative scissor cuts.